Hey there, this is Drew Badger, the world's #1 English fluency guide and the co-founder of EnglishAnyone.com, and welcome to a new advanced listening practice lesson. In this lesson, we haven't had one of these in a while, so I'm excited to make it again. As always, whenever we make these lessons, this is a really fast speaking practice for me. I like to get to speak more quickly because I spend a lot of time making videos at a slower pace. So if you are new to this video series, I highly recommend you go back and watch some of our previous videos, especially our beginning grammar series, which you can find on YouTube. So that's on our YouTube channel. You can look for the playlist that says Beginning English Grammar, and that is a lot slower version of me speaking, but it's still my same voice. This video series is all about advanced listening, and that means I'm going to be speaking at an even faster than kind of native or normal pace. So that will give you a chance to get used to the sound of my voice, but also the blending of sounds. And if you can, try practicing speaking along with me. This is called shadowing, and this just means that you're trying to copy the way I sound the same way I do. So not only the way I speak, but if you see my hands moving around, I like to communicate with my hands, especially to non-native speakers, because hopefully I can communicate a bigger idea or something more specific, but using my hands, it helps to complement the way I'm speaking. So in this video series, again, we're going to be speaking more quickly. So if you're not ready for that, please go back and watch the other videos. If you are, let's jump right into the lesson. Today I want to talk about something I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and this is something near and dear to my heart. This is actually a phrase, to be near and dear to my heart, is something that appeared in a recent Master English Conversation lesson set, and it just means something that you're passionate about or you love very much, but it's a native way of saying this, to be near and dear to my heart. Like soccer is very near and dear to my heart, but this is very near and dear to my heart as an English educator, an English fluency guide, someone that's trying to help people get from the kind of plateau level that they're at to the highest level where they can actually be speaking confidently. And so I'll be talking about that specifically in this video. A lot of lessons in this series, maybe I'm just talking about whatever. The first one is actually about laundry bags, if you go back and watch that video in this series. So it's actually a really interesting collection of lessons. But this one specifically, I was just thinking about this a lot recently, so I want to bring this up for this lesson now. But hopefully it won't be too quick for people. But again, you might have to watch this a few times until you can get it all and really understand everything. Anyway, so the point of this lesson, what I want to talk about is practice and why it's such an important thing. And I know this seems kind of like a very obvious thing to most students, like, yes, of course, I have to practice if I want to get better. But I really want to talk about first understanding what language learning is and what language learning is not, and then why such, practice would be such an important thing to think about. So first of all, when you think about a subject like math, or you're trying to learn science or something like that, where you have to memorize a bunch of facts and then use those again when you're taking a test. These are formulas, that kind of thing. I talk about this over and over again, but learning a language is not like learning that kind of information. It's not something where I can take a test and I have time to think about it and I can take a rule and use the rule and there's lots of time. Again, that time factor is the most important thing. So when you're studying a language in a classroom and you're thinking about taking tests, you have that time, you're listening to a reading exercise or a reading exam, or a listening practice exercise or exam, and you have time to think about your answer. But most times in conversations, you have to be very quick. Otherwise, you're just sitting there pausing like this, and you don't really know what to say. And this can be, frustrating and embarrassing for people. So the whole point, to be able to speak fluently and continuously, just the way I'm speaking right now, you're still kind of thinking as you speak in the same way I'm thinking right now, but you really want to be able to make this process go much more quickly. And the only way to do this is through practice. So what people normally do is they spend maybe 95% of their time learning something in a textbook. Or, whatever it is that thing could be. It could be listening practice, like you're watching YouTube videos, something like this. So it's all input. It's all input. But everything changes the moment you actually have to use that in a real conversation. And so it's only that time, you'll have to forgive me, there's like a truck backing up outside, but hopefully that little beeping will go away soon. Anyway, so when you're thinking about the difference between the way you practice, and so if you have this specific problem of, when you're talking to yourself, you're maybe doing some practice by yourself, everything seems to flow quite well, but as soon as you get in front of other people, it's like, like, what am I going to say? I don't know what I'm going to say. And then you start getting worried, and it gets worse and worse. And then, after a while, you're just like, screw it. I don't want to talk to people anymore. I'm too nervous, and I make too many mistakes, and it's too frustrating, and then you stop. So this is what we want to reverse. We want to reverse this process of kind of a downward spiral, this like a spiral going like this, where it's like something bad happens and you feel bad about it and it gets worse and worse. We want to do the opposite, where you get excited about something and start wanting to practice more and more, which helps you start get fluent and, getting more confident as well when you speak. So the thing I'd like you to really remember for this video is that practice is the most important thing, and practice is not learning and studying. So these are really two different things where you're just, kind of getting input only and you're not putting anything back out again. With learning a language, you should be spending like the exact opposite amount of time. Maybe you spend 5 minutes learning something, but then you spend 2 hours practicing it. And if you can do that more instead of sitting here and watching videos, and it's great if you can watch videos, you can learn a lot of information, but until you get into that actual situation where you're using what you learn, it will never become automatic for you. And the reason this happens is because language learning, again, is not like math or science. It's like learning a sport or an instrument. And me playing basketball right now is a perfect example of this. So I'm actually, I really enjoyed having fun. I played on the playgrounds back in America when I was living in Chicago when I was a kid. And so I would go out and play basketball, and everybody would be running around, and it's street basketball. It's a much different thing than regular organized team basketball, which I don't really know how to do at all. And I'm awful at it now, trying to play basketball out here in Japan. So I'm on a team, and they're having to tell me like, okay, just do this move, and then just do that move. And really, like, as a teacher, so the coach of the team that's trying to teach me how to do these things, I understand logically, and he understands logically. It's a very simple action, but when you're unable to do it over and over again, it gets really frustrating. And this is the same thing about language learning. So you really have to take that time between the understanding of something logically and then the actual being able to do it without thinking. And so the language learning process happens in the same way, whether it's a sport or an instrument or any other thing that's a physical thing. It's a combination of what your mind has with what your body is doing with that information. And the only way to get your body up to where your mind is to repetitively practice over and over and over and over again. That's the only way to do it. Well, you can see the sun like creeping up on me over here. This is kind of freaky. Anyway, here it goes. Oh, my eyes. Oh. Anyway, I'm getting excited over here. It's nice to get a little bit of sunshine as it's starting to get colder. But I really want you to keep this idea in mind. It's such an important thing that the learning of something, when you talk about like, yeah, I'm learning English right now, I really want you to be thinking about I'm using English right now, I'm practicing English right now, instead of I'm learning something. So you wouldn't really talk about I'm learning basketball. You would talk about practicing basketball. And so a coach will show me a move, and then I'll do it a few times, and I'll do it badly, but I keep practicing it until I can do it automatically. So it could be dribbling drills or like screening drills, anything like that, where I'm having to do something, but because I'm thinking about it too much, that's where I start making mistakes. So if you want to do this in English, you have to spend less time actually kind of like learning, getting that input, so you get whatever input it is you want, and then okay, you stop. I spend 5 minutes learning a new phrase, just like, some of the many videos that we have on our channel where we're teaching just 1 or 2 phrases. Get one of those, you watch a video for 5 minutes, and then go out and find people to practice with. Now, this is the part of the video where I can hear people complaining like, well, I don't have anybody to practice with where I live. Like, okay. There's no more excuses, like especially with the internet right now. It's really easy to find people to practice with. And even if you just live, without internet at all, if you live in any kind of city where you have access to native speakers because they're coming in to, view your country in the same way they'd be, a tourist, like you'd be a tourist in America, that kind of thing. A really great way to do this, and this is something I actually do, is you go to get like a tour, like especially taking like a regular tour, getting on a bus tour, but for non-native or for native, native English speakers. So lots of tours and things like that are organized for the benefit of American or, British or Australian tourists, so English-speaking tourists that come to your country. So let's say I'm in Vietnam. Just for an example, I'm in like Ho Chi Minh City. When I was there were lots of English-speaking tours that people have. And so you have like the Vietnamese people on like the Vietnamese tour, and then you have the Americans on the American tour. Now, if you really want to learn the language, if you're an American speaker, you get on the Vietnamese language tour. And if you want to learn English, you get on the American speaking tour. It's really that simple. So what I did, I'm on the tour bus with people, and I'm speaking with them, and I had a great time over there. And when I'm getting to practice and listen to people, that's a whole day or even longer than that of just getting lots of practice with within that environment. So when people talk about the immersion, to put yourself inside of that language situation, you don't need to travel to a different country in order to do that. You just have to be smart about how you practice, because learning the English language actually makes it much easier to do that than learning anything else. Now, I'm in Japan right now, so it's quite easy for me to go outside and start practicing Japanese, but maybe if I'm in, Algeria or something like that, that's going to be more difficult. But for English learners, there's pretty much English speakers all over the world, somebody that you could practice with, or even if they were non-native, there are actually more non-native speakers of English than there are native speakers of English around the world right now. Isn't that amazing? And so if you can think about that, like, it's really easy to get out and meet people. You just have to think like a native speaking tourist and think about, what would a native English speaking tourist do, or how could you help a native speaking tourist, something like that. So another thing I do is I actually pretend to be a tourist in places, and I recommend to a lot of English learners where you take a camera out to places and then you can ask people like, hey, can you take my picture? So another thing, like if you're physically in the same space as people, you can walk up, hey, can you take my picture? And then usually you get a little bit of a conversation out of that as a result. So all these things that you can do, that's the real thing you should be spending your time doing. Yes, it's great to watch videos and have lessons and all that thing, as long as you're learning the right kind of information and you're not teaching yourself English through your native language, which you should not be doing. Everything you should be doing should be in English, just at a particular level that you're comfortable with, but get out and practice. The most basic example I have of when I began changing the way I learn, and this is the grocery store example that I give all the time about when I was first learning Japanese and I did it the wrong way for many months, and I was trying to use flashcards and listening practice exercises, and I was really too shy to speak. And because I would try to get into a conversation where there would be really too many options for me, like a Japanese person would say something to me that I wasn't prepared for, so I didn't know how to answer that question, and I felt shy and stupid about it. So what I did was, I'm going to get in control of this situation and pick one particular thing that I can work on, and this happened to be like, where is such and such? Now, there are lots of different things I can practice, but in my case, what I did was go to the local grocery store in my area, and I walked around to everybody that was like a person at the shop, and I would say, where is the salt? Where is the sugar? Where is this? And it didn't really matter if I was buying that thing or not. I just walked around asking that person that question. So these people are all busy. They've all got stuff to do. They don't have time to ask me about what my history is or anything like that. They're just practicing, kind of helping me practice while they're listening to me, and they're saying, oh, like the sugar is over here. So I know I said the right thing when they understand me, and really all I'm trying to do is get in the habit of actually speaking in front of people. Because really that skill right there, if you have the habit of being able to speak in front of people, then you can develop fluency from there. But if you're too shy to even speak, then there's no way you're going to get fluent. It's just not possible, because learning the language, again, is not the same thing as learning math or science. Again, I'm trying to impress this upon you over and over again. It's such an important idea to remember that if you can't even speak, if you can't even practice dribbling the ball, if you won't even pick up the instrument and start playing it, then you're never going to get good. So whatever you're doing right now, you want to spend a little bit maybe time for the listening, the watching of YouTube videos, or looking at websites, things like that. Learn the lessons and then go out and use that as best you can. And this is exactly why we organize Master English Conversation lesson sets the way we do. So we spend a lot of time helping people learn particular phrases. So we really want you to learn the right kinds of things that help you actually sound more native and natural. But then we want to teach you how to practice those things in the real world. So that's why every month we have a program, kind of a unique part of the program that's actually how to practice, because that's like the most important part of being able to speak. You want to learn things so you can listen and understand, but you want to get out and practice so you actually develop the confidence to speak. And you can only do that if you practice. Well, that's it for this lesson. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you'd like to learn more about Master English Conversation, you can do so at our website. If you're not already a member, I highly recommend the program. It will teach you exactly what you need to do in order to get fluent, as well as how to practice so you can finally become a confident English speaker. Well, as always, this video series, we're having at least up to 10,000 views before we release the next one. So I look forward to releasing that, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Bye-bye. To continue learning, click on the link in this video to download Speak English Naturally, our free guide to speaking and sounding like a native English speaker. The guide reveals the 3 most important kinds of conversational English you must learn if you want to sound native, and will help you experience instant improvement in your fluency and speaking confidence. To download your free guide on a mobile device, click on the link in the upper right of this video. To download your free guide from a computer, click on the link in the lower right of this video. I look forward to seeing you in the guide.